a lot of new, well, I don't know how, okay, great. I don't know how new it is, but a lot of literature that's coming out now is saying that, talking about what's called the super spreader, that there are some people who spread the virus much more than other people. In other words, not everybody spreads it equally. You know, we measure the R factor, which is how infectious the disease is, and that's an average. And many people say it's like treating an average is like there's a bar where there's an average income, and then Jeff Bezos walks in and he's worth 50 billion. The average income in that bar suddenly dramatically changes. So he's like a game changer in that situation. Now, similarly, what this suggests is there are certain super spreaders, and there are a lot of people who don't spread it that easily. So instead of doing what we are doing now, which is looking ahead, finding somebody and say, don't meet too many people, don't be in contact, look back and see who he got it from, because he may have got it from a super spreader who has infected many people. So if you look back instead of looking forward, you may catch super spreaders, one person who's infected 10, 20 people. And I don't know, I just wanted your opinion on the variation between how much people can spread this virus.
So there are several factors at play over here. One, you raised a very important question, because that was the reason why we in the very early stage are saying contact tracing. So if you were, say, at a party and you were tested positive 2 days later, and then you went back and checked on all the people who were actually present at the party, but none of them got it, that means you are not a super spreader, your viral load was low. See, super spreader is not a genetic or an emotional issue. It is a scientific issue that if you carry, a lot of people carry a very heavy load of virus in their upper respiratory tract. So those are the ones. I'll take you back to that patient number 31 in South Korea. This lady attended a congregation at a church. She sang in the choir. The next Sunday, she went to another church. And they say, the authorities say in South Korea, that up to 50% of the patients who they had, or infected persons in the Korean experience, originated from that spread. So it multiplied, arithmetically 3 to 9, 9 to 27, 27. So that was the real super spreader, where the whole idea actually was discovered, that there are some people who will get a minor infection. That may be that their viral exposure was low, or their immune system was very robust. The second is that your viral exposure. So if you look at our own experience at Medanta, we can trace many, many connections to each other. That one person who came in, and 3-4 days later, the other person came in, and that chain went on for 7-8 people. That means that this person who started this whole exposure was in a way a super spreader. So on the other hand, you see medical personnel testing, their antibodies are positive. They never knew they got it. So what we are saying is, do they get micro exposures? Do they get little of viral exposures? Their body overcomes it, kills the virus, but it also develops antibodies. So there are many, many mysteries that are actually working their way through, because now we have a 6-month experience in India and close to 8-9 months experience around the world. So this data is very valuable. As you saw, there's another study that came out recently. Will shed more role, and actually also talks about this whole thing by contact tracing, that they found that there are some who spread much more aggressively than the ones that didn't. So you're right. Your question is absolutely right. How do we actually predict is the big problem. Is to say, is there a measurement we can come up with to say, identify the super spreader and isolate them right away?
Right.
Naresh, this is Amitabh here. Hello. Right. I just wanted to say something. Naresh, in my family, my son my daughter-in-law and my granddaughter and myself, we got positive. But my wife, my daughter, my staff that were in the same house, they didn't get it. And we are very astonished as to why only a section of the family had it. And even though we were mixing around within ourselves for at least 3-4 days, when the suspected persons, I'm just hoping that I was wrong, but I went across the road to my office, and there were some workers there that were working, and everyone saying, perhaps you got it there. But the fact is that even if I did, and I came back into my own house, and I stayed there for at least 3-4 days, until just accidentally my family doctor said, you know, I think you have a slight fever, we should test you. So we immediately went into to an MRI, and it was discovered then. How does this happen?
So, like we said, there are several principles. And you know, you must have seen in the early stages, they had these tests that they did of when somebody coughs, when somebody sneezes, or when somebody talks, how far the droplets go,
yeah,
and what the distance and how long the exposure is. So that's why the origin of masks came from this experiment, that if one person is, you presume, has COVID, the other person does not. They are within 3 feet of each other and their interaction is more than 15 minutes. Then the chances of the uninfected person getting infected are extremely high. On the other hand, if the person who's got it is wearing a mask and the one who doesn't is not, that chance, and still within 3 feet and 15 minutes, the chance becomes medium. But if both of them are wearing masks, then it becomes, in the same interaction, then it becomes minimum. So what we are saying basically is, it's that if you extrapolate it to your question, is that if you spend time with somebody talking loudly, where your droplets were naturally coming out of your mouth and your interaction was of longer than 5, 10, 15 minutes, that person could get infected and more likely than somebody who you may have spent less time or talked at a distance or not talked loudly or not sneezed or not coughed. So you could say, okay, you were playing with your granddaughter for a prolonged period. She got infected. She infected her mother. So these chains can be traced sometimes, but there is not logical all the time.
Yeah.
So that's why your question is correct. The answer probably, if you search in your own exposure from these parameters that I just told you, that because if you, again reminding you of patient number 31, she sang in the choir. When she sang in the choir in 2 churches, so you can imagine with that kind of operatic voice, how much that spread could have taken place in the air. Yeah. And you have 200 people packed in one air-conditioned space where the air is circulating. You then can, of course, be more likely to spread it than otherwise.
Yeah.
So there are many circumstances. You may be in an airy space where you may be highly infective, but the air flowing by will dilute it.
Right. Thank you,
and
Naresh.
then your
Just
own
to go back to that
counts.
super spreader, in Amitabh's case, is it possible, I mean, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know, that he and the people who were infected in his house met a super spreader, and that super spreader infected all 4 or 5 of them, but they were not super spreaders. Amitabh and Aishwarya and Ajita were not super spreaders, so they didn't spread it to the rest of the house. So it's just the difference between the original super spreader and Amitabh not being a super spreader. I don't know.
So, from what Amitabh just said, that he went across the street, met some laborers and came back. Those people did not meet any of the other family people.
But it could
Normally
be
what
somebody
happens
else
is,
also, you never know.
No. That's what I'm trying to, I'll give you that step also, because we see a lot that one person in the family help who lives outside or is serving you in the house or is a driver who's driving the family around, they have been found to be very infective, because you're driving in a closed car The driver has it, and he picked it up somewhere, and the virus is just circulating in the car and all the riders, but also it depends on your own immunity. You may be able to get that same load, and your immunity may be able to just knock it out.
Right.
It doesn't mean that the body is totally defenseless. What it shows is that the virus is notorious. It multiplies very fast. It then creates that kind of mass when it attacks, then the body reacts. So when we talk about why do some people get very sick and some 90% will just breeze through, this is the kind of, I think, the viral load and your own body's reaction and ability to contain it.
Right.
And God forbid somebody enters that stage of cytokinic storm, which cytokine storm was the most dreaded part, for which we have found basically very successful therapy. So if you start the antivirals early, the two being the oral one being favipiravir and then remdesivir, and then when you detect in your blood, in a patient's blood, that there are markers which tell you about the reactivity inside, like IL-6 and PCR and all that, then you can start dexamethasone, and you progressively add more things. So today we are very successful in what the doctor was saying earlier. Today the mortality is much below 2%.
Correct.
Even in very sick patients. So this is one good thing that has happened.
Okay.
But the bad thing that's happened is it's not going away. And I'll complete myself in saying three things. One, it is not a single factor battle. It's a three-cornered battle. And the three components are, one, what the government does. And in our situation, the government reacted very quickly. And I must compliment that the decision was very bold to lock down completely. Now, there is some controversy whether it would have been done over 2 days or 3 days. Those are different matters. So the government has continuously, and Dr. Guleri is on the line, continuously come up with recommendations, protocols, understanding the disease, disseminating information. That was all government. Then came the warriors, the corona warriors, which are not only doctors, nurses, technicians, but our paramilitary forces. Everybody actually who's on the front line has fought very hard, in spite of the fact that we know very well that there is danger to your own life. So it's like the real army that's out there on the borders. So the third part is the most important part, and that's what I call Janta ki ladai. It is the people's war. It will not come to an end unless people express responsible behavior. We have gone blue in the face. Media has been very helpful. Day and night you're talking about. Amitabh is talking about it day and night. It's just the three things that we have. That's the only weapon we have again today. There is no cure. So if people do understand that masking is extremely important and helpful, not only to protect them from their family, for the community, and for the whole country, basically.
Correct.
Second, distancing is very effective. It's been proven again and again. And the third thing is that because it can be gotten on surfaces, or you cough in your hand or sneeze or something, it can spread through that also. So hand hygiene, masking and distancing is the only weapon we have till vaccine comes through, and hopefully it will be in the next 3 to 6 months. So once that happens, we can relax. Until then, it should be the new norm.
All right.
The new norm is the three things. We should open up. We should start going back to activity. I favor that completely, but with responsible behavior.
All right.
And two most common things that you see. One, people wear it below the nose, which negates the whole thing, because your virus is coming out of your nose too. And the third thing is, the second thing is, they pull down the mask when they talk to you. That's the most infective moment. So please, everybody should know. And if I can request Amitabh to actually say it in his next communication on TV, because millions of people listen to him, that it will be helpful if we keep. I don't think we should let up for the next 6 months. It's boring, it's repetitive, but it's the only weapon we have.
I think
so we
that's
should just keep at it, all of us.
Very nice suggestion that Dr. Trehan has made. Dr. Trehan, thank you so much.